Welcome back to another episode of Heroic Attack, where we teach you how to play games the right way. Today we're going to be playing Welcome to the Dungeon by Yellow Games. Now this is a fun little 2 to 4 player game. Basically what you're trying to do is you're pressing your luck. You're trying to make it through the dungeon 2 times successfully, as indicated by these success cards here. However, if you fail going through the dungeon twice, you are out of the game. So the next thing I want to do is kind of cover the components of the game. So basically this here is everything that comes in the box, and this is everything you need for 4 players to play this game. We have our basic rulebook here, which I think is actually kind of cool. It's totally full color. They did a really good job with it. It's really short. This is a very simple game, guys. Basically, these are your heroes here. These are what you're going to be taking into the dungeon. And each hero has their own set of gear, as you can see here by these tiles. And the tiles are actually very nice as well. They're nice and thick. They have a nice gloss on them. And all the mechanics of the game are very simple. So the weapons do, 1 or 2 things. You have, different gear you go in with. But each hero has their own unique pieces of gear. Some of them kind of have the same mechanics, but they're different looking, stuff like that. They kind of fit the character. So you have the warrior, the barbarian, the rogue, and the mage are the heroes that you'll go into the dungeon with. And speaking of the dungeon, over here we have the dungeon cards. These are the monsters that we're going to be encountering in the dungeon right here. So we have like your general fantasy type monsters. We have a demon. We have the vampires, goblins, the golems, stuff like that. And, everything's very simple. The cards are very well designed. The art is fantastic. Very, very simple game, guys. And then over here are your success tokens. You get 2 of these, you win the game. Down here is your player aid. And this is really cool because it shows you how many of each type of monster is in the dungeon. And then this is the monster's power, and this is what they're defeated by. So that's really simple right there. Then you flip the card over and it's red. This is basically just a reminder that you failed to go through the dungeon once. Okay guys, so here we are at the setup, and basically what I've done is removed everything that we're not going to be using. So I've gotten rid of the other heroes, and that's pretty much it. The other heroes in the rulebook, really. So basically for your first setup, and this is a setup between 2 people, between 4 people, 3 people, whatever. This setup will work for any number of players, the max amount of players that the game allows. So what you're going to do is you're going to start with 1 hero. You can place your hero tile, and then what I like to do, this is how I like to set the game up. You set your tiles like this, you line them up in a row so that way they're easy for all players to see. And so you have your hero down here, so you remember who you're adventuring with, and then your 6 pieces of gear. So remember, each character has 6 pieces of gear. And then over here, I like to put the monster deck right there, so that way it's easily accessible by all players, and we can all just draw cards from there, and they're easily grabbed by anyone. Then in front of me here, I have my player aid. And that's pretty much the setup. This is how you set up for your first game of Welcome to the Dungeon. Alright, so here I've got my second player because this game requires at least 2 people to play. And what we're going to do here is show you actually how a turn works, how to play this game. The rules for this game are very simple. But the cool thing about it is it's kind of deep. It's got a little bit of depth to it. It's got some strategy. And as I said before, it's a chicken kind of press your luck game. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to goad each other, I guess, into going into the dungeon. And either, I think he can succeed, he thinks he can succeed, maybe I think he fails. It's kind of, it's up to the cards at that point. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how the first turn is going to work. So you randomly decide who goes first. Since I'm better looking, I'll go first. I mean, that's fair, right? So essentially what we'll do here is the first player will draw a card from the dungeon. So I drew the golem, and he's not supposed to know that, but for all intents and purposes of this video, we'll go ahead and air out the card. So I drew the golem here, and there's nothing here that can defeat the golem except for the Vorpal sword. So I just have to hope that later on I can remember that and grab this card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this here, and that is one of 2 things you can do on your turn. You draw a card. You look at it, you say, do I want to maybe fight this monster, or do I want him to fight this monster? Because remember, it could be you too. He could pass at an opportune moment. So you want to place that card in the dungeon. Okay, so let's say that play has passed back around to me, and I draw a card next. So I drew the little skeleton guy here. Let's say I want to keep him out of the dungeon. Let's say I don't want to put him in and I want to keep him in my hand. That is an option you can take. You have 2 choices, like we explained earlier. You can place a card in the dungeon, or you can hang on to a card. And what I want to do here is I want to hang on to this card. So what you do is you put this card face down in your area here. And the next thing you're going to do, if you keep a card, you have to remove an item from play. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the Holy Grail. And I'm going to put this over here. So your monster stays face down, you keep your item over here by you, and these items, for all intents and purposes, are removed from the game. They are no longer in play, they're no longer in the game anymore. The hero now only has these 5 items to go into the dungeon with. And play will continue back and forth until we either take enough items to where people are like, you know what, I don't think I can make it, I'm going to pass. And when you're the last person that hasn't passed, let's say play goes around to Drew, and he's like, you know what, I don't think you can do this, so I'm going to send you through to get killed. He's going to pass, and then since I didn't, I have to go through the dungeon. So essentially what we got to do is, let's say we have a couple cards here. Let's say for all intents and purposes, play went around the table. We built up a couple monsters here, and you know it's now my turn to go into the dungeon. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through the dungeon, and I'm going to decide whether or not I won. So I draw my first card. Okay, I have the Dragon Spear, and that defeats the dragon, as you can see here by the number on the card, or the symbol on the card there. So match those two up. That defeats that. He's dead. Drawing the Skeleton, so defeats monsters 3 or less, strength 3 or less, so he's defeated by the Torch. So he's dead too. Next one comes up. Torch again, defeats monsters with strength 3 or less. He's gone. And the Golem, so I take 5 damage because I don't have a hammer to kill him with. I could have used the Vorpal Sword to call out, hey, I defeat the Golem, but I forgot about that. So, or maybe I didn't know it was even there. So essentially I took 5 hit points of damage. So that's kind of how these armor items work. Your hero starts with a starting hit points HP, so he starts with 3 here, and then the plate armor adds 5, and the Knight Shield adds 3. So 5 plus 3 is 8, 3 is 11. We have 11 hit points to go in the dungeon with. The Golem took away 5, and your hit points don't regenerate between monster encounters. That's one important thing that I want to say is, let's say you take 5 damage, you have 5 less hit points to continue through the dungeon with. So once you lose all your hit points, your character is dead, you flip over your card, and that means you failed once. But that didn't happen this time. When I went through the dungeon, I succeeded, so I grabbed one of these little success cards. Once you hit 2 of these, you win the game. Or, let's say if Drew fails out, he fails, he loses his player aid, he lost twice, he's done, I win the game by default. So I think that's a really cool mechanic that they've colored these different colors on both sides so that way you know, kind of keeps track of things. But essentially, that's how play works. It passes back and forth until we chicken each other out of the dungeon, and then whoever either has the most success, or the 2 success cards, or you know, when everybody else fails out and there's one player left standing, that player's the winner. I really like this game. I think it's super simple. It's a lot of fun. The artwork is very good. The little tiles are very well designed. It's affordable. And you know, it's a really good like in-between game before you get into one of those big 3-hour box games, you know, something like that. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I hope you've learned how to play Welcome to the Dungeon here with us, and I hope that you'll enjoy this game as much as we have. Thank you so much for watching Heroic Attack, and we'll see you at the next episode.